exposing the secret to endless fun on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Our channel's packed with epic content, exclusive tips, and a vibrant community. Don't miss out. Subscribing gets you front row seats to all the action. So what are you waiting for? Smash that subscribe button now and join the fun.
A world on the brink, setting the stage for global conflict. The world in the 1930s was a tinderbox of unresolved tensions and simmering resentments. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919 after the First World War, had imposed harsh penalties on Germany, creating a breeding ground for nationalist sentiment and a desire for revenge. In Germany, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party rose to power by exploiting economic hardship and national humiliation, promising to restore German glory and overturn the perceived injustices of Versailles. Meanwhile, in Japan, militarist leaders sought to expand their empire in Asia, driven by dreams of regional dominance and fueled by a belief in Japanese superiority. The League of Nations, formed after World War I to prevent future conflicts, proved ineffective in the face of these growing threats, hampered by its own internal divisions and a lack of decisive action. The seeds of World War II were sown in the aftermath of the First World War. The Treaty of Versailles, while intended to prevent future conflicts, inadvertently created conditions that made another war more likely. The treaty's harsh punishments on Germany, including territorial losses, disarmament, and crippling reparations, left the country economically devastated and its people deeply resentful. This resentment was skillfully exploited by Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, who rose to power in Germany in 1933 by promising to restore German pride and overturn the terms of the treaty. Hitler's ideology, a toxic mix of nationalism, militarism, and racial superiority, found fertile ground in a country eager for a strong leader and a return to greatness. Meanwhile, in Italy, Benito Mussolini and his fascist party had already seized power in 1922, promoting an aggressive nationalist agenda and seeking to restore the glories of the Roman Empire. In the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin's brutal dictatorship had consolidated its grip on power, driven by a communist ideology that sought to spread its revolution worldwide. The stage was set for a clash of ideologies and ambitions, a collision course that would plunge the world into its deadliest conflict yet. On September 1st, 1939, the world watched in horror as German tanks and troops stormed across the Polish border, marking the beginning of World War II. The invasion of Poland, a calculated act of aggression by Adolf Hitler, shattered the fragile peace that had held since the end of the First World War. France and Great Britain, bound by treaty to defend Poland, declared war on Germany 2 days later, but their response was initially hesitant and ineffective. The German military, employing a new tactic known as Blitzkrieg or lightning war, swiftly overwhelmed Polish defenses. Blitzkrieg combined rapid armored advances with close air support, overwhelming the enemy with speed and firepower. Within weeks, Poland was crushed, partitioned between Germany and the Soviet Union, which had signed a non-aggression pact with Hitler just weeks before the war. The invasion of Poland marked the beginning of a global conflict that would engulf Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Pacific, drawing in combatants from around the world and forever changing the course of human history. The early years of World War II were marked by a series of stunning German victories as Hitler's armies swept across Europe, conquering nation after nation with terrifying speed and efficiency. The fall of France in June 1940, after a lightning-fast German campaign, sent shockwaves through the Allied nations and seemed to confirm the Nazi war machine's invincibility. However, the tide of the war began to turn in 1941 with a series of key battles and strategic shifts that altered the balance of power. In June 1941, Hitler's fateful decision to invade the Soviet Union, breaking the non-aggression pact he had signed with Stalin just 2 years earlier, opened up a vast new front in the east. The German invasion, initially successful, bogged down in the face of fierce Soviet resistance, the harsh Russian winter, and the sheer size of the country. The Battle of Stalingrad, a brutal, months-long siege that began in August 1942, marked a turning point in the war. The Soviet victory at Stalingrad, achieved at a tremendous human cost, shattered the myth of German invincibility and marked the beginning of the long, grueling Soviet advance westward that would eventually culminate in the fall of Berlin in 1945. Section 5. Leadership in the Crucible, the impact of key figures on the war. World War II was a conflict shaped not only by the clash of armies, but also by the visions, decisions, and actions of a handful of key leaders. On the Axis side, Adolf Hitler's fanatical ideology, ruthless ambition, and strategic blunders played a decisive role in shaping the course of the war. His early successes, fueled by his gambler's instincts and the prowess of the German military, masked fundamental flaws in his judgment, including his disastrous decision to invade the Soviet Union and his underestimation of the United States' industrial might and resolve. On the Allied side, Winston Churchill, Prime Minister of Great Britain, emerged as a towering figure of defiance and determination. His stirring speeches and unwavering belief in ultimate victory rallied the British people during their darkest hour, even as German bombs rained down on London during the Blitz. In the United States, President Franklin D. Roosevelt, though initially reluctant to involve his country in another global conflict, provided crucial leadership and resources to the Allied cause after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941. The war also witnessed the emergence of Joseph Stalin as a major player on the world stage. Section 6. The human cost, civilian experiences, and the Holocaust. World War II was a conflict that engulfed the globe, leaving an enduring legacy of death, destruction, and displacement. The war's impact extended far beyond the battlefields, touching the lives of millions of civilians caught in the crossfire of a conflict they had not sought. For civilians in occupied territories, life under Axis rule meant enduring hardship, deprivation, and terror. Resistance movements sprang up across Europe, challenging Nazi authority at great personal risk. The Holocaust, the systematic, bureaucratic, state-sponsored persecution and murder of 6 million Jews by the Nazi regime and its collaborators, stands as one of the darkest chapters in human history. Driven by a racist ideology that deemed Jews an existential threat, the Nazis implemented a program of mass murder on an unprecedented scale, using gas chambers, firing squads, and other methods to exterminate Jews and other groups deemed undesirable. The Holocaust stands as a chilling reminder of the dangers of unchecked hatred, prejudice, and indifference in the face of evil. Section 7. The atomic bomb and the end of the war. By 1945, the tide of World War II had turned decisively in favor of the Allies. German forces, battered on both the eastern and western fronts, were in retreat, and the Allied advance toward Berlin was gaining momentum. In the Pacific, American forces were closing in on Japan, but Japanese resistance remained fierce, fueled by a fanatical devotion to the emperor and a refusal to accept defeat. The war in Europe finally came to an end on May 8, 1945, with Germany's unconditional surrender to the Allied powers. The surrender followed Adolf Hitler's suicide in his Berlin bunker on April 30th, as Soviet forces closed in on the city. The war in the Pacific, however, raged on, with Japan vowing to fight to the bitter end. In a desperate gamble to force Japan's surrender and avoid a costly invasion of the Japanese mainland, the United States made the fateful decision to use atomic bombs against Japan. On August 6, 1945, an American B-29 bomber dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, Japan, instantly killing tens of thousands of people and unleashing a wave of radiation sickness that would claim countless more lives in the years to come. Section 8. Shaping the post-war world, the legacy of World War II. World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history, left an indelible mark on the world, reshaping the geopolitical landscape and ushering in a new era marked by both progress and peril. The war's end witnessed the emergence of the United States and the Soviet Union as the world's two superpowers, their rivalry shaping the decades that followed in what became known as the Cold War. The formation of the United Nations in 1945, a successor to the failed League of Nations, represented a renewed commitment to international cooperation and the peaceful resolution of disputes. The war also had a profound impact on the process of decolonization. as European powers, weakened by years of conflict, found themselves increasingly unable to maintain their overseas empires. The war's legacy, however, was not without its shadows. The development and use of atomic bombs ushered in the terrifying possibility of nuclear annihilation, a threat that would hang over humanity for decades to come. The horrors of the Holocaust, the systematic genocide perpetrated by Nazi Germany, served as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked hatred, prejudice, and the fragility of civilization. Section 9. Remembering the past, shaping the future. Lessons from a global conflict. World War II, a conflict that engulfed the globe and claimed the lives of tens of millions, stands as a stark reminder of the human capacity for both good and evil. The war's lessons, etched in the memories of those who lived through its horrors and passed down to subsequent generations, continue to resonate today, urging us to confront the forces of hatred, intolerance, and aggression. Fields or in the shadows, remind us of the high cost of freedom, the importance of standing up for what is right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. World War II was a watershed moment in human history, a conflict that reshaped the world and left an enduring legacy that continues to shape our lives today. As we remember the war's victims, honor its heroes, and reflect on its lessons, let us resolve to create a world worthy of their sacrifices, a world where peace, justice, and human dignity prevail.